roof, I think we've only got 5 left to go. I was wrong, we've only got 3 left. So basically when you order metal roofing, normally you get cover sheets which are just for transportation. So you can see over there, there's a cover sheet there, there's another section down the bottom, and these two here are just some half sheets. And quite often they are from the same cut, that's what's left over. But for instance, this hasn't got felt on the bottom. But what I have found is a bit of damage, which is not ideal. You can see here, it may have been me on the forklift, it may have been on the way here, I'm not sure. But it's just buckled in there. I can probably pull it back out, but it's annoying because it's on, if it was the other side, it would be where it would be covered over by a decent sheet. But I know I've got this sheet left for the remaining one on this side, which is that green strip just at the end there. But on the other side, I'm going to go down with these two first and use them up. At first glance, I feel like we might be short. It's a 16 metre chassis with the overhangs each end, so I've got 17 each side. I can see from the other side we need 1, 2, 3.5. So basically 4. We've loaded up 2 down here. There's a damaged one up there. Hope that we left one down this end. Yes, we did. Phew, that was lucky. It's probably going to be covered in grass seeds on the bottom. Well, there was a load of mice under it instead. They were everywhere. Sorry guys. Well, at least we know why the cat's been hanging around up there. Right, another day and we've got to get this roof finished. Got about 3 hours of dry weather this afternoon. So there was, if you remember, about 2 minutes ago for you, a few days ago for me, there was a damaged sheet. You can see here, I've started to bend it back a little bit, and I'm still concerned that that's going to show up on the roof, mid-roof, even with a bit more bashing around. So I've decided I'm going to try and take off the very first sheet down the far end, because you remember we've got L-shaped barge boards to sit over the top, and in which case it will cap over this and this will be hidden. These are the sheets we've got to go on, and they are trimmed ready. So the only thing left to do is to get that silicone on, and then we'll lift the sheet up and mark it. Finally, the roof is dry. Not feeling strong enough today. They're not the lightest sheets, but going for the heavier grade is definitely worth it. I can walk on them. You know, we're at about 1 metre centres, just over 1 metre centres, and they definitely feel strong enough. You're not going to dent them or anything like that. Well, I'm on the roof, as you can see. What I've done is taken off that end one, so that we've now got a good end to finish that side, and we'll have a capping piece that we can put over there. So you can see I've split it here, and it was a consistent line all the way along, so at least there was no chance of water creeping up and over. It'd be best that I bring one sheet over the top, slide it down, it's probably safer. while we're up here, I'll give you a quick look at the ridge. I've intentionally kept them apart, and that's so that when we come to split the building in the future, it's easy to get to this membrane, because what I've done is tuck this membrane, he says, I'll show you here, loose by about 300mm over. So I think we put a couple of staples in the middle to make sure it didn't flap around, but it just means that when we join the buildings we can tuck that over and you've got a weatherproof joint, and then we've got a big 200 by 200 ridge trim to put on. Right, so as you saw, we're almost there on the roof. I'd almost go as far as saying we're about 99% weatherproof. Of course, we've got the centre strip of the ridge to cover. So what we'll be using to get over that is what I was explaining earlier, which is a 200 by 200 ridge piece, which looks like this. This was fabricated to the angle, the pitch of the roof. There's a little bit of give in this, so you can get off-the-shelf versions, but our roof is a little bit shallower than normal. So therefore I had this made to the 12.7 degree pitch that it is, or the equivalent of. The only thing I've noticed with this is they haven't folded under the edge. It probably doesn't matter, it's all galvanised anyway, but normally the ends are just folded back on themselves, so it's a safer sort of finish. This is kind of just literally the thickness of the steel. Also, it's a slightly different finish from our plastisol roofing. They've sent like a wood grain effect. It's okay actually, I don't mind it, but if I was being really fussy, it's a slightly, well, it's a more of a matte finish. It doesn't quite match. I think it will when it's up there, and after a while that roofing will get a bit of dust and grub on it and it will all blend in. But it was interesting, I've not come across this before. So it's got a wood grain foil on it, or wood grain finish. Then on the edges we need to get our barge trims on. We decided on putting those timber Douglas fir barge boards on, and we'll be using these steel trims to go over the top of that. That basically caps the end of the roof. You can get away with not needing this on the edge of the roof. You can simply just have your roofing finish on top of a timber barge board, but this really does just cap it and seal it all in. So what we have been able to do is reduce this down to 150 by 150. Again, it's got the wood grain type finish on it, but it's fully galvanized profile. And because it's 150 by 150, it's a little bit more discreet. Quite often it's 200 by 200 on the edges and it looks a bit clunky. Now the reason I've been able to go to 150mm is really down to our roofing. Right, so here's some of the offcuts of the roofing, and you can see it's just a regular small corrugated profile. Now if you imagine this is where the edge of the roof is and we haven't done any cutting, if I put an L trim on the end here, it will sit on here and it will probably reach across to this one. So it's really well capped, and it means that we could either put some sealant down here or both, and by the time it's fixed there's no chance of any weather issues or anything like that getting under there. And that is why I've been able to go with 150mm. And even if the edge of our trim finished kind of just hovering over one of these troughs, it wouldn't matter, it's still going to be plenty strong enough. The problem is when you go to a box profile roofing sheet, then you really need to think about where your roof ends and finishes. So here's a dusty, dirty bit of profile, box profile roofing, and you can see there's far less ridges, so that if our roof was ending here, for example, and I was using 150 by 150, it would probably end up about here, which means it's completely unsupported, and it just doesn't look right because you've got this big gap, and that won't stay nice and straight. Now you can, I think, get some sort of profile which would sit under this supported bit, but you don't really want to be adding bits to the roof if you don't need to. So you would probably have to go 200 so you get to this point here. But if you're ending up cutting your roof because it falls on a half sheet or something like that, it just might not work how you expect. It might be unsupported. So I might go as far as trying to work out and design my roof so it ended with the right part of the profile at the edge of the roof, and therefore use a 150mm trim on the end, if that makes sense. So you don't have to have some sort of oversized barge board just so you can reach one of the ridges. That's me, and I'm fussy. Anyway, my job this week is going to be to get these last few bits on. It'll probably be part and parcel of another video because there's not a huge amount in it. The ridge trims, of course, are going to be just dry fixed with no sealant. They don't need it. And they will be the bits that when the two halves of our building get moved at any point in the future, that bit will be removed, and then the other two halves are free to move. The barge trims are actually independent of the ridge, so they can just stay on, they're permanent, and they can be sealed to the roof. One last thing to mention is the foam profiles. You might have come across these before. They are just the negative version of our profile, and I guess the white side is if you had a light colour sheet. But we've got the black there, so some people would use these down at the eaves to kind of seal it off, but we want nice amount of airflow underneath our roofing sheets to clear any moisture and condensation. We will, however, be using these by inverting them upside down on top of our roof sheets, and then our trim will sit on it. That means if you're looking up the roof towards the ridge, this will be sat on it, the ridge trim will sit down on it, and it means no driving rain, snow, anything can force its way up underneath that ridge trim. Again, we can do a bit of a feature on that when we come to install it all. And that's it, that's all that's involved in getting a steel roof on. It's a really easy way to go, great option for outbuildings or anything like that. And I think it's a pretty smart looking building. Of course, we have no shortage of corrugated roofing and different profiles around the farm, and there'll be different aspects of it going into different projects in the future. But for now, the cabin is roofed and we can focus on the inside. My last remaining bit is just to get this barge board painted on the end here. I'm going to paint it black, the wood grain will show through, it'll all tie into the roof line, and then our L-shaped barge board will sit over that, and it will cover about half of it, I think. There we go, it's finally on. I'm really pleased about that. Bit of a short video today, but we've got a big one coming next week because we're moving on to plastering and decorating the inside, which is exciting. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.